Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to what day is this? Monday night edition of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott, and we got our good friend Courtney Marchesani here for a little bit of UFO talk. We know you love Courtney when she's on. It's the real stuff, the real deal, and we're going to get to her momentarily. Dirty Filth is here with another crazy cartoon, and the best part about tonight, we have each and every one of you, including Tim Mothman and his goatee in the gold medal position. Kitty Caddywhack with a silver. Eternity Eternal taking home the bronze medal tonight. Hold on, I got heartburn. There we go. And Kurt M., how you doing? Robert Lamoth and Mel WD40 is here, lubing us up for tonight's show, because you got to talk UFOs lubed up. You just do. It's the way it works. It's the way it makes this story run a little bit better, smoother, easier. So we're glad that Mel is here. Frankie B., how you doing? Be Your Own Music. Welcome to SOR Chat. Thunderhead, how are you? As we continue on with our roll call, Skip to Malou, good morning to you. Skip to Malou will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Mama Catherine, I love you, my dear. Hope you had a wonderful day. Thank you for the lovely text messages. I can't wait to hear from you each and every morning. It makes me just feel so nice and warm. It does. Necessary Dialogue, how are you doing? So we continue on with our roll call. Jaquetta, thanks for coming on in. And who else do we have here? Shelly Heaton is here. Shelly Heaton will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. JSCO, Inspired Potentials, welcome. Where's that, Courtney? Yeah, it's Courtney. Yeah. Well, Courtney's in the chat room, too. Give her a wave. She always waves back. It's true. She told me. Scrolling on down, Mickey G, how are you? And who is next on our list here? It's Race Fan. Yep, Race Fan, way down the line tonight. Road Flare, how are you? And Creepy Pasta, Alpine Fur, a.k.a. Thomas Rock. Thanks for coming on in. And where are we here? Scrolling on down. Ann B, how are you doing? I'm Hardcore over on X. Thanks for coming on in. Super Crazy. Johnny Tex, welcome to SOR Chat. In the studio, thanks for joining us. Chris. Matthew Goodka, how are you? Emperor Penguin, good to see you. Teen Algoray over on Twitch. 12,000 sit-ups in 6 minutes to warm up for Courtney tonight. His stomach muscles are jacked for tonight's show. Alien Critter, how are you? Nice to have you here as we continue on with our roll call. Area 54, thank you for kicking off the super chat tonight. You are a treasure, my friend, a treasure of secrets at Area 54, but we love you here anyways. Thank you very much. And of course, J True Seeker, how are you? And Gary, how you doing? Nice to see you. Susan Alloway, thanks for coming on in. And we got all of you. Undead Jed, finally changed your name back, I see. Benno, good to have you here. And UFO Sarah, thank you for joining us. How are you, my friend? Hold on. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Courtney Marchesani is our guest. We're going to get deep into the UFO world tonight, finding out what's going on in the latest news and reviews. We are about 35 seconds away from starting this show. We are in roll call on our YouTube side. So let us wrap this up. Jerence Carter, how are you? Nice to have you here. And who else is here? Purple Cupfish, nice to see you. And Dead Fish, good to have you back. We're caught up there. We're all caught up. Super Chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do. If you're new here, do us a favor, hit subscribe, ring that bell as we are here 7 days a week. Throw those horns up. Let's rock.
Are you ready to hear your mystic voice of the night?
It's time to wake up.
He's here. Shush. Be quiet. He's ready for you to listen. Let's point our ears towards the little cabin in the woods, where together, my friends, we own the night. It's time for Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott.
From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot. Read the news wire. Check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We have an amazing show for you tonight. If you've never heard Courtney Marchesani talk about the other side of UFOs, you are in for a treat and probably a jaw-dropping experience. Then in hour number 3, Swamp Dweller will join us for another spooky story. We're going to follow that up with the UFO report. The Wizard, Josh Rutledge, will be in. It'll be good like that tonight. All right, let's get into this show tonight because Courtney Marchesani is a person who dives deep into the UFO phenomena, uncovering the truth behind decades of governmental cover-ups, hidden files, and global secrecy. An author, intuitive experiencer, she explores the powerful connection between consciousness, contact, and disclosure, revealing how official denials of extraterrestrial reality. Her investigations bring clarity to UFO mysteries, blending science and the human experience to expose what's truly going on. And sometimes it's not very pretty. We're going to bring her on in. Courtney Marchesani, thank you for coming back on Spaced Out Radio, my friend. How are you?
Hey, thanks for having me back. Who wrote that bio for me? I know that I didn't do that. It was very,
I
very
may have,
well done.
I may have put these fingers to the keyboard and made that happen. So
Very nice copywriting, Dave. I really like it. Totally approved.
some people need Chat GPT. I need Chat Davey.
Chat Davey. I like it. Chat
Yes.
Davey working for me.
Lots going on in the UFO world, yet it's the calm before the storm. You know, as many say, there's a lot of things going on, and you have delved really deep into it on a bunch of different sides of the ledger here. Before we get deep into it, there's always new audience members listening in, wondering who Courtney is. Why did you become so passionate about this subject?
It was an encounter that my daughter and I had outside of a town called Lakeview, Oregon, and it was in 2015. I had had other experiences, non-UFO related, mostly anomalous experiences, also called exceptional experiences, that were really like undefined and totally fringe outside of regular science. And psychology is the way I come to all this because I'm a psych major. I have my master's in mind body medicine. So I explore really the humanistic side of all this, the lived experiences and what humans go through. And sometimes that covers unconventional or anomalous experiences. So when we had our own encounter in 2015, it was very transformative for me anyway. It was life changing, and it made me kind of go back and recast a lot of those early experiences and trying to understand if they were connected or not to what we experienced in Oregon that night.
You delved right in deep into this subject, and you've become a focus of a lot of people as someone who can gather information, build contacts, and try and find out the story behind the story. How did you get started on that venture?
I started to just watch influencers like Grant and you and SOR, and to see the different panels that were public. There were only a very few influencers back then. This was before the big New York Times Pentagon Black Money, by Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal and Helena Cooper. So I was like, 2 years before that, trying to understand this whole landscape and this field and to see who the authorities were, see who the scientists were. So I just waded into the field that way. And then I started to go into conferences. This was after the New York Times article. There started to be more conferences and things that were professional or academic where people could go and listen to experts talk. So I first went to the Archives of the Impossible in 2022. I went to Inquire Anonymous in New York a couple times. I went to the Soul Conference a few times. So I started to meet people that way. And then as you meet people in the field who you're either drawn to because they have similar work or you're inspired by their work, you develop your network that way.
You've become a trusted voice. You've become a very focal voice for many people within this community on both sides of the ledger, the pros, the cons, and everything that kind of goes with that. Do you feel at times that you're in a UFO tug of war?
Oh, definitely. I'm not one of the people that doesn't entertain the skeptics because I think the skeptics have great arguments that they're making. But I think because things have become so divisive between both communities, it becomes very difficult to bridge that divide. But I do try to bridge it as much as I can because I think the skeptics community they make a lot of great general arguments for why things don't stack up, and I think it's important to listen to them. I think that there is a difference between skeptics and debunkers, and debunkers are those that I really don't, I don't stay in touch with that much, but skeptics I do. They basically say, how can you substantiate this, or how can you argue for this? And so there's a lot of healthy debates that go on that I think are very good, that can help bridge that divide between those two communities. But I think it's just like politics. You have far right, far left, you have far debunkers, and then you have people that are, the true believers on the UFO side. And so that can be a difficult divide to bridge.
It really is a community that is divided right now for people who are, very much involved in it. And a lot of people have started walking away because of the politics and everything that kind of goes along with it. Why do you keep trudging through when it just seems like a dead end after dead end on stories?
Oh, I think that what's happening in the landscape is fascinating, from cultural aspects, sociological aspects, psychological aspects. I think it's just this lattice of interdimensionality that is so fascinating to watch. And not only that, the relational aspects between the experiencers is very rewarding. You meet incredible people in this field. It's life changing on a number of levels, but that's why I stick with it, because it's just always complex. It's unfolding. You can pick the part of it that you're most interested in. You do have to deal with a lot of BS, but you just learn how to tease that out from the stuff that you're really interested in and go towards that. Don't let the dark stuff get you down.
No, I would totally agree with
As I
you.
throw my cat down.
But you know what? You have been dragged into a number of different topics, because the one thing this topic in UFOs really does is it spider webs very easily into different directions. And a lot of times people get caught up in certain parts of the web. You have been able to kind of try and balance it all for yourself. I mean, sanity wise, how have you been able to keep control of it all, knowing that there's so many different narratives and directions to go in?
You learn who to trust. That's one of the most important things. You learn who to trust in the field of research. And there are so many people that are willing to help you out along the way. I've had so much help from experts who are always willing to give their time and their attention and to share if I don't know something and I'm asking for help. They're always willing to help. So that's the one thing, is learning who to trust is essential. That keeps you balanced and on track with your own research. So with the networking thing, that can be a pitfall for a lot of people as they're coming into the field, because some people, and I hate to use the word, I'm not going to use these words because they're very cliche, but there are some people they'll just take you down a rabbit hole and waste your time. So that's half of the battle, is learning really who the great researchers are, who the ones are willing to help you out, connect with you, share their time with you. So that's one of the main cautionary things, is find the good people. Don't waste your time on things that waste your time.
I'm going to put you on the spot here for a little bit. Have some fun. Take it for what it will.
Okay.
What you will. Okay. When we got into ufology, the researchers that we followed were the Richard Dolans, the Grant Camerons, the Stanton Friedmans, Linda Moulton Howe, Melinda Leslie type people,
Mhm.
legends of the field, in my
Mhm.
opinion. And nowadays, because the topic has expanded so much, who are the researchers today that are really catching your attention and doing yeoman's work on this subject?
I think some of the ones that were in Fight Club with us are the best, honestly. The ones that we were in that group with that were doing work quietly behind the scenes, they didn't have a really big name. I've just noticed that Carl, who the physicist from Austria, just did a talk on the panel at Seoul. He's an incredible researcher. He's one of the people that were like up and coming, kind of learning about everything, and now he's at Seoul. So he's somebody that I really highly regard. He does incredible work. He's able to separate the wheat from the chaff, and he has just a remarkable mind for the physics and UAP science and technology. So he's one of the people that I've always listened to and talked to. Now, I'm not in Fight Club anymore, but I was really happy to see that he was on the panel. The other guy that I really like is one of Grant's connections, and he was also in Fight Club. It's Giuliano Markovic. You remember him?
Yes.
Yeah, he does great work. Totally quiet behind the scenes, but when he puts stuff out, I pay attention to it. But like he's not like a Jesse Michaels, or you know what I mean, like a Chris Ramsey. These guys aren't out on like the leaderboard of the YouTube channels. They're doing the work mostly behind the scenes, but it's impeccable work.
I love it. I think that's a really, really good point that you made there. Speaking of UAP, we just recently passed the eighth anniversary of the creation or announcement of the To the Stars Academy in the Pressless press conference in Seattle.
Wow.
Hard to believe it's been
That
8 years since Tom DeLonge stood on the podium, introduced Lou Elizondo to the world, Chris Mellon, Steve Justice. For people who didn't know the names, Hal Puthoff and Jim Semivan. And that was a table turner for this field, was that pressless press conference. And why I call it a pressless press conference is they were very proud to have this public press conference. The problem is they didn't invite any press. So that's why we called it the pressless press conference. And it happened in Seattle. And this is where we really started to see the term UFO go away. And we started hearing this UAP jargon coming into play. In your opinion, how did the To the Stars Academy change the landscape of ufology?
Oh, I think it was a total upending of what was before, and it coincided with a lot of what Tom DeLonge was talking about with his, secret group with his generals, and then the WikiLeaks came out with the Podesta email part of it. So it wasn't just the establishment of TTSA, it was this parallel process that was happening where he was actually kind of outed through the WikiLeaks thing because he was talking to Podesta, but it was the plan. It was like the general's plan coming out live. And so everybody got to see that he was 100% legit with what he was talking about. There was a political landscape unfolding at the same time. And so it was TTSA bringing about a radical change in ufology and UFO, but it was all like science and tech. I would put that kind of in the nuts and bolts crowd because they announced their organization of their company and what they plan to do. And then we saw the History Channel shows that were introduced along that time. And then the spin-offs, like Skinwalker and all of that, which have become famous, And so I think it's had, it's like an octopus. TTSA has so many legs and tentacles into the field. They came out in a number of ways.
They really opened up the envelope. And look, I'm on record. I was not a fan of the To the Stars Academy. I saw, as a journalist, too many red flags right off the bat that just really set me back, starting with the pressless press conference. Now, a lot of people have said, well, what difference does it make? Well, you don't hold a press conference for the press if you don't have press there who can ask questions about why you're doing it. The other thing I remember noticing right off the bat was that during their speeches, they kept talking about UAP and UFOs. And yet, when they pushed everybody towards their website, there was not a single mention on the entire website. And I looked, and I know others looked too. There was not a single UFO or UAP segment on their website. It was unbelievable. Like, what are you trying to do here? Like, it didn't make sense to me. And I know a lot of people lost money on them. Some people lost tens of thousands of dollars on the adventure. And I was just like, wow, like, what are you people doing?
Everybody was tracking that. And then there was a public statement made about the money that was invested in it and everyone's contributions, and that there was a filing that went in on their corporation that showed that I think they were losing money at the time. So a lot of people were really upset about that, raising the alarms about it. But TTSA, one part of it, it still exists,
Yes.
and Jim Semivan does come out and he does interviews. And I saw that Tom DeLonge has a new book now about the Time Riders. I haven't read it yet, but it was highly recommended to me because his focus has changed and shifted, and he's reflected that in all of his entertainment projects that he's done. But I do think the entertainment part of that, they changed the field on that as well, because they said that they wanted to do tech, but they also wanted to do tech and science, but they also wanted to do entertainment projects. So they broke through that barrier as well. I mean, we know very famous filmmakers like James Fox has been doing this for a long time. He's highly regarded, and he's put out some new films just in the last year, and now he's got the new one coming, the follow-up to Moment of Contact, which I heard is really exciting, and there's some compelling new stuff in the new film. I think he tracked down a doctor who was down in Virginia, and he's got him on the record. And so I do think that TTSA broke through a lot of those barriers in the UFO game, and they fashioned themselves the people that coined UAP, but we know that goes back a lot farther.
Oh,
I
very,
think
very true. And
I think it was Dick Haynes, wasn't it? It was Dick Haynes that coined that
Hillary
originally.
Clinton on one of the late night talk shows, right, while she was running for president.
Oh yeah, and then so did Obama too. He said they're UAPs now, and the word UAP changed. There were different forms. At first it was unidentified aerial phenomenon. Now it's unidentified anomalous phenomenon. So it's had many iterations.
It's easy to pick on the To the Stars Academy for their multiple amount of failures. But I think one of the good parts that came out of it was the instantaneous press that took over. They literally were everywhere on every major newspaper, on every major news channel, interviews all over the place. And they immediately took this subject from the druthers of conspiracy and tinfoil hat jokes to legitimacy. And I do give them credit for that.
Yeah, I mean they had Steve Justice on their board. They had him on the History Channel shows looking at these thermal exhausts, whether they had them or not. They put that into the entertainment project to take things and put it into, a real form, entertainment form for people to see the behind the scenes stuff with the science. So they did break through a lot of barriers. And I'm not a TTSA hater. I do think there were things that they broke through and did really well on. And I think there's things that, obviously failed. And I think that they, had a big fallout because of that. And Tom DeLonge probably wanted to accomplish things that he couldn't. And I think there was some obvious fallout because the people who left right away and those that stayed with it. So, I do think that they did some good things for the field. And some of those books, those initial books were incredible. God's Man in War and, some of Tom DeLonge's early books where Jacques Vallée was writing the preface for it. And those were groundbreaking for people to read and get into the field of research of UAP science.
I do believe, though, and we only got about 90 seconds, so I'll try and make this quick, that Tom DeLonge was the rise of the TTSA and also the downfall of the TTSA. His appearance on Joe Rogan did not do him any favors. And in one of the articles that I wrote, and I was told through Melinda Leslie from Jim Semivan, that I put a section in there that said, there's a time to rock star and a time not to rock star. And the Joe Rogan interview was not a time to rock star.
I think that Joe Rogan's show has a tendency to it can polarize things even more. He doesn't let people off the hook necessarily. He'll double down on things. So and he can kind of put people on the spot. I think he's softened a little from,
sorry to cut you off on that point.
ahead.
I apologize. But I think on that point that I was trying to get without saying it, but I might have to, was when Tom DeLonge started talking about unzipping his pants and whipping out his, that's what I mean by it was a time to rock star and not a time to rock star. That definitely in that subject matter was not time to rock star.
I get it. Enema of the State is one of their albums, so it's like that is that's what he's known for. I do think though, when you're thinking of the PR and media machine behind TTSA and his star quality, they needed someone like him I think that was part of their plan to bring out, all these other folks for TTSA, and he did.
Courtney Marchesani is here tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Plenty of cool things happening in the UFO world. We're going to get into, is disclosure dying? Is it on life support? We'll find out from Courtney next on Spaced Out Radio. All right, we're clear.
Wait till you hear me go in and break down everything that's going on. It's going to blow your mind.
Oh, I can't wait.
It's going to blow your mind.
Paramarv caught it that the Caribou Con website is now up and running. Okay. Just want to let you know that it's not officially running until Thursday, but very soon VIP tickets will be on sale for the September 18th to 20th event, which reminds me, Courtney, you should drive down for that or if you're in Montana, drive up for it.
Yeah, just drive down through the Yukon and all of British Columbia. It would be there's a much faster and easier ways. We're
I'm
going to
just
get
saying, I'm on
snowed
the
in
way.
soon.
I'm on the way. Beelzebrad, how you doing? Grant Cameron is going to be the keynote speaker.
Oh, cool. I'm glad he's going to be there.
Yes. And who else do we have coming on? Merle is coming. Samantha Mowat
Yay.
is going to be there.
Wow. What a lineup.
Actually, you know what? We have a great lineup. Let me show you here for a second. Let me just bring it up here. And hold on. Let's share the screen. Let's clear that for a second. And let's do the old share screen thing. There it is. So let's just bring it up here for a quick second. So there's the event 2026. Here are our speakers. Let's click on them for right now. Oh, there's me. I'm speaking. Samantha Mowat, Merle, Lee Strauss.
Lee Strauss is an up and comer.
Yes. And Grant Cameron. Look at that.
Awesome.
R. Keith Andrews. Brent Thomas. We call him B. Arthur around here from Paranormal Portal.
Okay, I don't know him.
He's great. Absolutely great. Paisley Town, numerologist. And we have just confirmed that the ladies from the Beyond the Haunting television show are going to be there, along with Christian McLeod has decided that he's going to make the trek up from North Carolina.
I think I do know him. I think I have heard of him.
Yeah. And so I might need one more, Courtney.
Do you want me to be there? I'll come.
Okay.
I'll come. There's time.
Yeah. You got it like 11 months, 10 months.
Yeah, I can do that for sure.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
Okay. All right. I'm going to build you a bio right now. What do you want to speak on?
Oh, it has to be UAP research or anomalous experiences, one or the other.
Let's see here. We have a little bit of everything. We have cryptid people. We have ghostly people. We have UFO people, alien people. We got a good mix.
Yeah, it's got to be UAP research or anomalous experiences. Those are the two things that I'm the best at.
Okay. After I'm done the show, I will call you and confirm with you. Okay.
Okay.
On that. It'll be good. It'll be good. Check the private chat for a second.
Okay.
On the right-hand side.
I see it. I'm responding to you.
Okay. If that's good for you, then we'll get you signed up.
It's good.
Cool. All right. Thank you to our lone super chatter tonight. It's Area 54. Thank you. Appreciate your love. If you're new here, hit subscribe, ring that bell. Here we go. Here comes the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for tuning us in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hey, we want to remind all of you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. Courtney Marchesani, UFO researcher. She is diligent in her work. She is an amateur citizen journalist who does impeccable work that any big-time journalist can do. And she is here to bring the UFO story to you. Courtney, get you to unmute your mic. Welcome back.
Hey, so I wonder if you saw this new media blitz that's happening right now around Enigma's announcement about all these USOs off the coast of the US. Did you see that?
I had a phone call from somebody today about this exact same release, shall we say. Explain it for our audience, the release.
It was just in regular newspapers all around, and it started to hit people's inboxes that a UFO app, they didn't say the name in a lot of the in a lot of the articles, but they said this UFO app identified over 9,000 USOs off the coast of the US. And there's a map where you see these dots. And I just started digging into it, you know, because I saw people posting about it. So I went to go look at the articles to look at what the app was, and it was Enigma. And not only that, you know, I started digging into Enigma's reportings, and they've logged over 30,000 sightings since Enigma has launched. And so I was looking at the actual timeline of what's being reported, and it's hitting the news and the media right now, but it looks like this was back in August. Did you see that too? Were you able to look back and see when these USOs were actually off the coast, these 9,000?
Yes, and the person who I talked to has much more experience about these types of reportings. And this person, who I'm going to keep quiet because it is a source, told me that a lot of those sightings were not even vetted.
I wondered that. So I
They were
started
not
to go
vetted.
into,
I think
yeah.
the ones that were vetted was like around the number 300 to 400 that were vetted, and out of those, they expected though about 90% of those to be able to be broken down into something evidentiary. That's non-UFO / UAP / USO / flying saucer.
Yeah, that was my other question. Like, how many of these are USOs versus transmedium that are air to surface and then under the water? I guess they can't tell that.
Or jet boats, submarines, missile, torpedoes.
Or animals, you know,
Or
under the
animals,
water,
or
semi-echoes.
yeah,
Okay. All
you
right.
know,
That's
or
kind of what I started
Aquaman.
looking at. Yeah, that's what I started looking at too. They were saying some of the reports of these sightings were within 10 miles of US shoreline. So I thought that was concerning. This kind of maybe adds up with what your source said. 500 of them were within 5 miles, which is like deeply concerning. So I just went through some of those and kind of looked at what are they doing for sensor information? Who's reporting? Because I remember when Enigma came out, it was basically their customers or their people who downloaded the app into the phone. That's who was reporting these sightings. So then I was kind of wondering, well, did they open up Enigma to a wider way of sensing or other reports besides just the folks who have downloaded the app?
I'm actually glad that you brought this up because one of my sources that I was talking to, and I will say that probably another dozen times here in the next 12 seconds. Okay.
Yeah.
He
Okay.
told me point blank that the majority of those reports came from other reporting sources that somehow Enigma Labs has got their fingers on. So if you
So
look at those other reporting sources like CUFOS, Newfork, MUFON, MUFON Canada, and many other of those independent research companies, apparently a lot of those reports came from those. And in fact, Josh Rutledge, our UFO wizard, he was telling us the other night on the air that he actually has found his reports. He's part of MUFON. He has found his reports on Enigma's website or their app. And so what happens is, as my source stated to me, Enigma doesn't have anybody following up. They don't have any researchers. They're just taking the data, and sometimes I hate to use the word stealing the data, allegedly. Okay. But that is how they are getting the majority of their reports. Now, their app, according to my source, is becoming more and more popular because it is easy to use. But I will let this slip. I will let this slip. According to one of my sources, another source, MUFON is actually, because of Enigma Labs, is going to be coming out with a new reporting database that instead of it taking 25 to 45 minutes to fill out, it will take 2 to 5 minutes, and your report is immediately going to be followed up by an investigator.
Wow, that is big news. When's that coming out?
I can't say just yet because I probably
Okay.
spoke too much.
Well, that's okay. I'll share some. We couldn't share some speak too much tonight. I have my lines that I've drawn in the sand, so that's really cool. Thanks for sharing that.
I think that it would be very good. And this is what I've said prior to this, okay, is I've told our audience, so this is nothing new. Be wary of Enigma Labs. When you don't know the people, you have no idea who's on the board of directors, you have no idea where their money is coming from, you have no idea what they are doing with their information. When they are all of a sudden out of the blue getting invited to governmental projects and conferences that are private, like NASA's UFO/UAP conference about a year and a half ago. This is where you have to worry. Is this someplace I want my information to be put out? So
Oh,
I
I,
always
I
say,
agree with you 100%. We've talked about this. We've had a through line on this for years where we've talked about, the app, downloading the app, information. Phenom, they have their app. Nano now has an app. There's a lot of different apps out there in the UAP sighting space, but Enigma was one of the first big ones. And like with other companies like Skywatcher or others, there's
yeah,
deep pockets. There's deep pockets funding these organizations, and some of it's private, some of it's private public, but private partnerships. And so it's really a matter of sussing out, and sometimes you
right.
can't, who's behind the scenes.
Here's what I would like my listeners to do, and I don't know if you'll agree with this, Courtney, or not. And if you don't, I would love to hear your opinion. If you're going to give your UFO report to a group, look at who their board of directors are. Look who's involved with them. And if you have the same government people or intelligence people or former intelligence people or you have it that are involved with 80% of these groups, okay, you might want to think twice about giving them your information. And I know that MUFON and I have had our tete-a-tetes numerous times. Okay, I'm not a MUFON member, but I know enough people within MUFON, from state directors to investigators to even board director members, okay, to know that if I was reporting something, at least I know it's going to an independent site that actually has real investigators, people like you and me, who are actually taking the time to look into my case, rather than it going to somebody who is ex-CIA or ex-intelligence or NRO or military that is searching for this subject matter, where you don't know where your information is going.
Oh, we're going to get into it. We're going to get into it even deeper, and how this all connects, and all your cautionary warnings, how it all makes sense. We're going to get into
it. Let's go.
Yeah, so did you see Matthew Brown say that all the, billionaires can go F off and go to their bunkers? They can go to their bunkers. Did you hear him say this on a recent podcast?
I heard about it, yes.
Okay. All right. So I think it's very timely, considering what you just brought up about, the apps, the organizers, who's on the boards, ex-intelligence, or, your regular old intelligence person who's just, working their beat, that's part of their job, right? So I thought it was really interesting that he brought this up, because one of the things that I remember from him talking on George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell's Weaponized was talking about this overclassification system that he ran into during the Immaculate Constellation. When he was doing all his research, and he comes across this file, and he basically has said openly through the interview and as follow-ups that the only thing and the only reason why this secrecy is maintained is because of fear, greed, and willful ignorance. And so I think that he's really hammering home a lot of these points about how this whole, like what he saw was a whole AI-driven system behind the scenes that classifies all these UAP reports, takes them in real time, and then hides them and parses them. That's part of his testimony, right? When he was working. And so part of the whole thing with the Secrets Task Force in the last hearing, which was basically restoring trust, right? The public's trust back in the government, is essentially like this overclassification. That's a huge part of it. Second, how whistleblowers are being treated and how they have been treated, losing security clearances, losing jobs, loss of money, sometimes, breaches of records and things illegally. But one of the things that I wanted to point out, and I don't know if I pointed it out in the last SOR, but one of the things that one of the people said on the committee is that whistleblowers report fraud, waste, and abuse at 5 times an actual government audit. Do you remember me saying that?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like we need to put in protections. That was a big thing with the last hearing. We need to put in better protections for the whistleblowers. We need to lift up this classification issue and this overclassification, because you hear all these whistleblowers saying that reality is classified, which is kind of like their spin on all this, which I think is a good thing to have, your sound bites or your one-liners. But it really comes down to what's going to happen now. So I have to ask you this. Did you hear that Carl Nell came out and said the actual part of the UAPDA process, or part of the controlled disclosure, is dead? That he said this publicly recently?
Yes.
Okay, so you caught that. So
Yes.
on Richard Dolan's show, I guess it was like a week or so ago, he had this guy on. Have you ever heard of him? His name is Alan Levine. I always think of Avril Lavigne when I see the guy's name, because I think of the singer. I think she might even be Canadian.
Yes,
But
she is.
anyway, yeah. Have you ever heard of him, Alan Levine?
No, I have not.
Okay, well, he had Alan Levine on, and he basically went through the age of disclosure. And much of this you and I already knew because we talked about it. I know we talked about this like a year ago, that age of disclosure was part of this whole process from the Senate Select Intelligence Committee, which was approved. All these whistleblowers or people who are government or military in this movie have been given approval to talk about what they've reported to the government in this movie. You remember that, right?
Yes.
Okay. The second part of that was that this was supposed to come out during like the election time, like last year. And
Right.
it didn't, it came out later. But the reason why was because there was supposed to be this big push for disclosure, a political push for disclosure, and that the age of disclosure was going to be coming around this time in a timely fashion to move it into like the legacy media, like ABC, NBC, CBS, in order for them to cover the movie while also politically pushing for disclosure. So it had these like two-prong effect. Okay, so when I'm watching Richard Dolan and this Alan Levine talking about the age of disclosure, he recaps a lot of that. Like this movie is going to push it forward and push disclosure in this very narrow way. So I basically heard him break down that the last remaining like bastion of hope for disclosure is this very well organized group in Congress of staffers, people who have been on this through the whole time, and people who are on the SSIC who have listened and seen the age of disclosure. And what they're going to try to do, according to this policy analyst that was on Richard Dolan show, he was saying that they're going to try to release classified transcripts, which is basically what all the witnesses and all the people in the government and the military that are on the record with Dan Farrah's movie, that they're going to try to push all those transcripts to come out, and that would be a limited disclosure.
Is that what is necessary to move the ball forward? Or does it end, if they do it, does it end the topic of discussion?
I think it moves things into what I've said before, which is the technology transfer. And I know you were like agog for me saying that, but I think what it does, if it's a limited, narrow disclosure that happens where they release transcripts that were formerly classified that testify to a lot of what the age of disclosure witnesses are already saying in public through the entertainment project, then it would allow policy to happen in Congress. So yes, but I think that's just for the technology transfer, but that's just me. There could be other people who have different opinions about that, but I think that's why.
I find it very interesting that, the disclosure movement, since the two that we just celebrated, the Stars Academies anniversary.
Yeah.
Okay. I find it interesting that so many people have so many different avenues that they believe are the way to disclosure. Some people want, the big fear still seems to be catastrophic disclosure, which would break it all open. And that's what I believe is needed. I don't
Well,
believe
that's what
that it should be
Matthew
controlled.
Brown did partially. Did you see some of his tweets, which were over the summer? They were kind of cryptic, but he went on to X and immediately responded to Elon Musk about the technology that they have. It was probably back in like June or July. And then he said, okay, I'm going on vacation now. I'm basically like cut out. But he was doing some drops, which I would perceive as catastrophic. But I don't think that's going to happen. Even if the whistleblowers do drop some of what they have, it wouldn't be it's not going to be a full everything, because those people that are witnesses to where, whatever Air Force base or whatever base that they were at, it's not the complete picture. It doesn't go into experiencers, the history, the MyLabs, the executive orders that kicked all this off. It's not the full tapestry. So I don't think catastrophic will happen, even though I'm a catastrophic kind of girl, that. I think that if this last play to get these transcripts that were classified release is some form of disclosure, I still think that it is some form of disclosure, which might be all we're going to get in our last, the last hope. But that being said, the last time this happened was during 2014, according to Alan Levine, and he said that it was during the era where the US was using torture. And so that was during Dianne Feinstein's whole secret committee that she set up to get all the information out of the CIA about methods and whether it was providing useful intelligence. And so that's the last time it happened as a precedent. So it would be very difficult to get, but there is basically 21 people on the Senate Select Intelligence Committee, and they need a majority to get those transcripts released. So that's what it's going to take. And I haven't heard any calls for anybody to contact their senators or their reps at all about these transcripts. So I'm interested to see how that's going to play out. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to mention it tonight, for other people to watch for it, to see if there's any movement at all. The next big thing, how much time do we have? Because the next big
We
thing
have
is
3.5 minutes.
Okay, the next big thing is the NDAA and the things that people need to be watching for in the UAP like research movement, and it's all about aero and drones and the legislation that they're trying to push through the NDAA and the Counter Act. And Gillibrand and I think it is Cotton have both signed on for some language to come in the Counter Act for drones and UAPs. And so there's going to be this huge parallel process happening between drone swarms and UAP incursions happening at the same time. And that's the thing that we all need to start paying attention to in Congress, is those dividing lines, the policies, the legislation, who supports it, and how UAP incursions will be brought in through the Aero office. For example, did you know that Aero has an actual piece written into the legislation that there is supposed to be a liaison for this counter UAS task force?
I did not know that.
Why is nobody talking about that? I mean, there's supposed to be this Aero liaison designated by the director to sit in with the UAS, which is basically unmanned aerial vehicle task force. So there's these crossovers that are happening between, the Pentagon and Congress, and these different forms of legislation that are being put through now or proposed in the NDAA, which they always usually meet in December for the NDAA, the 2026 for passage. So things are being put in right now, like Burleson just put in some new legislation. So there's a bunch of different things happening. It's not disclosure, it's very soft, but there is definitely movement. So when they're doing these podcasts, or they're coming into spaces and they're saying, we're working on stuff, we're getting a lot done, these are the things that they're doing. I'm just calling them out very specifically so people know what all this cheerleading is happening for.
I think that I don't know. I just think that the way it was set up, that the NDAA would not have much into it for UFOs / UAP again, that to me was a real bubble burster, because I thought after, they got rid of Mike Turner on the Gang of Eight, I thought there was a chance it was going to go through. Boy, was I wrong.
Do you mean the UAPDA, the
Yeah.
Disclosure Act? Yeah. They didn't even get that into the manager's
Oh, I know that.
package in the Senate.
It really made me think that it was like, I think truly, we could talk about this when we get back from the break, but I
Okay.
think truly they're trying to bury any disclosure movement. They're trying to get rid of it. They don't want to deal with it anymore. They don't want to deal with the nut bars and the people who are causing a lot of online harm and rhetoric to this subject.
You said it. They don't want the nut bars. I think that is like the harbinger or the death knell of the end of disclosure. You said it. You just said it. And I think the reason why is all those reasons you just said, and the amount of time spent, the urgency around all this for it to happen at a certain time, and all that's passing. And so I do think that it's good for us to clarify on SOR tonight, like what is important, what the cheerleading is about, and how we can still make an impact with some of this if we're asked to, but much of it might happen behind the scenes.
All right, Courtney Marchesani, hour 1 is done. Hour 2 about disclosure talk coming up next on Spaced Out Radio. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
Good quote about the nuts, chock full of nuts. I love it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's really what was coming to me as I was like looking over all my notes, all the news, all the updates, things that people aren't seeing. Because there's just such a barrage, of the entertainment stuff, the podcasts, the old cases. People aren't watching what's really going on. And as I started to see it all, I was like, this is because we're crazy. This is why this is all coming to an end, because they don't want to deal with it anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. They're done. They got to put the children back in the nap time area.
Nappies.
Let's get over to Dirty Filth here for a little bit. We got about 5 minutes, Court. Hello, Dirty.
Hello, Dave. Hello, Courtney, who just sauntered away. Hello, Josh, lurking in the background. Look at him lurking. Nobody else can see him lurking, but he's lurking. Well, I'm excited for the rest of the show. I'm almost done drawing my other cartoon. Ooh, I got to show the other cartoon first. Bloody hells. This was the cartoon I did. I'm getting a head start on some of my winter drawings. So here's poor Nightcrawler. He's having an extremely difficult time figuring out how to shovel his sidewalk in the wintertime because, well, he put his nice winter boots on, which I actually forgot to put the gold buckles in there because he's got gold buckles on his belts here, on his boots. Here we go. Gold buckles. Turn the ow. Gargoyle just jumped right off me, squished my crotch. Unbelievable, but he's a cat. What do you expect? So here we go. Here's the Nightcrawler. Let me get my nice little border that I got here, so everything looks nice and professional and how it looks inside of a frame. There's the Nightcrawler. Wondering how to figure out how to get his shovel working when he only has 2 feet. Yeah. Not sure how this is going to help or whatever, but if he's lucky, maybe a gnome or something will come by, or a little goblin. I was gonna add a couple more things in there. It wasn't to my satisfaction. There we are. Excellent. Do you know how difficult it is for the Nightcrawler to open a jar of pickle juice? He's got pointy little feet, and he's got to keep his sidewalk clean because cats, I tell you. Because eventually his sweetheart, Lady Nightcrawler, is going to come visit him. And that's who he's waiting for. He's going to get the sidewalk clean first, but it's going to be quite difficult to do that when you got no hands. So, with any luck, a gnome or maybe even a friendly Sasquatch will saunter by. That was just, so that was tonight's drawing. I was whipping up this other beauty here. This is the goblin running through the snow. Just figured I'd get an extra one done here while Dave and Courtney are out feeding aliens, and Dave's feeding a dog man in his backyard, and Courtney's putting out saucers of milk for the aliens, so they leave her alone during the show. If you're ever interested in watching more drawings, Saturdays at 3 p.m. Mountain Time, which is 2 p.m. Pacific. Anything else, you guys will have to math it out. I draw cartoons on Spaced Out Radio as well. So you just type in cryptid cartoons with Dirty Filth, and I'll be there drawing cartoons and usually solving life's mysteries. Got a whole bunch of interesting drawings. Oh, anybody was watching earlier, how much time do I have here? 4 minutes, 30 seconds approximately. So if anybody was watching earlier, I have permission to show this. This is a drawing that I've been collaborating with. It's with an elf named Feifel. You can look up Feifel the Twit, Fifle, the Twit, on X. She draws great artwork. My space frogs are collaborating with her. So this is the penciling. I'm just doing the penciling of the sprogs. She does all the actual fine artwork. And it'll eventually show up, and I will share it with you guys when we get to that point in time. But I had to show that because I don't get to collaborate with other artists too often. And now that I get to, and I have permission to show it, at least the bare bones, and talk about it, I'm excited. So, yes. Oh, hello, Courtney, if you're still looking here.
Hi, I'm watching what you're doing. Can you recap for me?
I can do it in like 10 seconds here.
Yeah.
I'm doing a collaboration, my space frogs, the little tiny pencil drawings of the space cats, with some intrepid space elves, with a friend I met on X, and we're both wonderful artists. So I'll keep everybody informed.
Excellente.
You are amazing.
Totally amazing.
Have a good night, everyone.
See you, buddy. Dirty Filth, everybody. He is amazing. Really is. Thank you tonight to Walter, Pam, and Area 54 for the super chats. Greatly appreciate your love and support. And we're going to get going in like 5 seconds. Don't forget to shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. No ugly swag and brand new swag there for you to look at. Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for tuning us in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Yes, hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Schizotrichia. Schizotrichia is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Courtney Marchesani is here with us to talk about UFO disclosure. Where are we heading? Is it a good direction, a bad direction? Do we know truly what is going on in this UFO world? And we're glad to have her here. You can always find her on X at Inspired Create V for creative. Create V. I love it.
Correct. I'm doing well. And if you haven't seen me in my rant pages on X, then just type in Courtney Marchesani on any Google or other search engine and you'll see it. It always pops up. So you don't have to have the handle. But I just want to bring everybody back up to speed is what we were saying before the break, which is the Congress, all the committees, they're most likely very overwhelmed by, all the UAP support, I think, and advocacy efforts. And maybe they're just closing ranks right now. And so we just before the break kind of went through maybe one of the last bastions of hope, which is for a transcript release of all the UAP committees and some other maybe UAP task force transcripts, which might come out if there's a hard lobby by certain people in Congress who have been following this issue closely, including maybe the task force. And the reason why I say that is because supposedly, I don't know this, but supposedly Luna got Title 10 and Title 50 clearance on the Secrets Task Force to be able to get access into some of these whistleblowers reports that they haven't been able to before. And that might be able to turn the tide to have these transcripts be released. That was one way. That was through one push through the task force that's been set up for UAP secrecy.
how much of the whistleblower action that we have seen so far publicly has gone to sway the government officials on this topic one way or another? Because when I look at the whistleblowers, I look at it as they aren't whistleblowers. They are people who have had experiences like you or me. The different part about it is they were hired by the government when their experience happened. And the only real whistleblower that I think the UFO world has had so far may be David Grush. And there's
Yeah,
still
well,
a little controversy around him.
there
So
has been.
I have a real tough time, and this is a personal thing. This isn't an evidentiary thing. I'm just going by what I have seen as a show host, that I don't think we've had true whistleblowers come out. Whistleblowers provide information. They don't tell a story.
Well, I think there have always been people in Congress, rumored, alleged, whatever you want to say, that have been interested in this issue because they are experiencers. So there's that part of it. Then there's the whistleblowers who have had witnessed accounts. And when they witness an account, and as everybody's going to see in the age of disclosure, they have all these witnesses that have actual accounts on bases or military installations, or these are people in Congress, several people that are still in Congress or on the record, including, Marco Rubio, who's, one of the heads of our national security right now. So the gravity of all of that is just about ready to hit. That's going to be coming out. People can see it on Prime on November 21st. I already said, James Fox has a new movie coming, the follow-up to Moment of Contact, which is, I think, even more exciting in some ways than Age of Disclosure coming out. But for people, the uninitiated that haven't been following this whole issue, that's exactly what it's about, is about people reporting this and the issue to be taken seriously. So it kind of falls along lines of the experiencers. A lot of these whistleblowers kind of fall into that categorization of experiencers because they've had an account, but we're not really hearing the after effects that they've had necessarily, like you would hear from a normal experiencer's case study. For example, Jim Segala did this study, the MUPA study, okay? And he was essentially hired by Hal Puthoff, and it went down in Austin, Texas, and worked with Hal. And he was an electrical engineer, I think, by trade, but then he got his PhD in physics. And so he was tapped to basically run this study called the MUPA study, where they studied these individuals. Some of them worked at Skinwalker or were former employees for Bass and the Bigelow group. And so they put those folks, like 36 people, into a group and had them, they either had experiences or injuries while they were on the job from UAPs. And they studied them at home, at work. They gave them like a personal device that took information in, sensor data and other things while they were home as well. They also connected them into like a live chat space, and they also journaled about their experiences. So that study is actually an experiencer study of these individuals that had events happen. Then they went into the study, they took all the data, all the information from the sensors, and then they also took all their narrative reporting. And so these people were considered experiencers. And so there is real data now from multiple groups, multiple studies that validate experiencers and their experiences. But I think that when you're talking about whistleblowers, they always don't fall along the experiencer line. Sometimes they're just witnessing something. You know what I'm saying?
And I think that's the point. But I think we are so hungry for people to come out from the inside to talk about this that we're willing to mislabel them for what they aren't. And I think that has been a giant mistake on the UFO world's part in, telling these people. And look, I'm not saying their testimony is incredible. I'm not saying that whatsoever. Whistleblowers, though, true whistleblowers, bring out information, and they are able to provide information that moves a subject forward that could get them in trouble, that could get them jail time, that could cost them top secret clearance that might, put some egg on the government's face. We really haven't had that.
No, and that was by design. Remember when Whitley Strieber, I said at the first Soul Symposium back in 2023, and that was with Carl Nell, Avi Loeb was there, Beatrice was there, Kevin Knuth was there, our former Fight Club, member. We were all there. Ross Colthart was there, and Whitley Strieber stood up during the Q&A, and he said, I don't know why I am not allowed as an experiencer to talk in Congress or to bring my story forward or even be represented here today at Soul. And he said, I was told there is a moratorium on experiencers, not only in DC, but in this whole initiative of disclosure that's happening right now. And especially in Congress, they didn't have any palate for it. It was not a palatable thing. But I think we need to look at one of the most recent things that just came out, and this was on my list, and I'm glad we're getting to it, is that Dan Sherman just came out, and he wrote, the famous book way back when. I mean, I remember reading it I don't know, like a decade ago. I guess it was when I first had my experience with my daughter. I read Dan Sherman's book, and he talked about
Oh, you muted yourself, Courtney.
he was in like a modular,
Okay.
and he was in the army, he was recruited, and he testifies to all this in his book that he went and he was interfacing with this computer, and it was very slow and monotonous at first, and he was supposed to watch this line and he was supposed to move the line. It was essentially like a mind computer interface, and eventually he did, and he met the benchmarks. But over the time where they were training him, he was essentially connecting to NHI or, some kind of alien tech interface. This is long before, Skywatcher and all these, new brain to computer interfaces. And so he just came out on Jesse Michaels. He talked about his book. He talked about his experiences. And so it's so interesting because when he was going through those experiments, essentially government funded for the military, he picked up, on essentially like a call or a stream that he wasn't supposed to connect to. And they were talking about alien abductions. And I think this is one of the reasons why it's not palatable in any way or regard right now, because they can't say that part of this phenomenon is true because of lawsuits, because of civil rights, because of all the reasons around it. But Dan Sherman just came out and he said he would be willing to testify. So I think that's a big part of this, is why it's been left out of the whole debate or discussion or even being able to be brought into it as a topic.
Well, I like the point how you pointed out the lawsuits, because this could open up an entire can of worms. Okay, if it was ever to come out of that UFO Pandora's box that many believe is sitting in the Pentagon, that somehow, some way, people within the military industrial complex or the agencies knew about these abductions happening, and to whom, that's going to cause a giant tear in the fabric of governmental trust.
Well, and that's why it's been left out by design. Like Kirk McConnell at the Soul last year in November up in outside of San Francisco, he said openly, like, these individuals, he was talking about the whistleblowers now, and some of them are full-on experiencers. He is saying that the government's going to have to make things right with them. Loss of job, loss of security clearance, loss of income. He's been on the record saying, and he was with the Senate Arms Committee. He's, one of the very important lawyers that's been helping whistleblowers behind the scenes with their own cases. And he said that publicly. They're going to have to make things right with these individuals, veterans, intelligence community people who have been wronged. So if you spread that wider into people who have made claims about, alien abductions, and you have evidence and material and physical evidence, then yeah, that would potentially be a bombshell, a huge bombshell, because of the legal part of it.
So when you say controlled disclosure, that's what they are going for, what does that look like?
That's been the battle plan from the beginning. And it was such a taboo word, controlled, right? Because nobody wanted to believe that there was an actual top-down controlled effort with the legislation, with the lobbying efforts, with the entertainment projects. But you can clearly look back and see that it was controlled disclosure. Carl Nell spoke about this at the First Soul after David Grush's hearing in 2023. That it was preferred for it to be controlled disclosure because of the security state, how it would erode and fall apart, because of national security, because of the military industrial complex, because of all the psychological and sociological factors around ontological shock. I mean, he did a PowerPoint presentation on controlled disclosure and why it was preferable. So with him coming out and saying, this part of controlled disclosure is dead or done, that is a major signal that we haven't been successful with what he wanted, which was the UAPDA, the actual legislation to get passed. And some parts of it were adopted in the NDAA, like the Recordization Act, to go in and get all the records, but they didn't get the presidential panel approved. They didn't get the eminent domain approved. And so many people were negotiating about it coming into this new round in the manager's package. And the sign from that group, that core group that put that legislation through, is it was as ambitious as it was in the beginning, because that's what we needed to do. And now that that's not passed again, it hasn't even gotten into the floor. There are different people putting in different types of legislation now to try to salvage or maintain some part of the Recordization Act and tighten it up, make it better. So people kind of need to look at all these new issues coming forward in this last push. Burleson has proposed something. There's this counteract going through right now into the NDAA that Gillibrand and Cotton signed on for, to have UAPs included in that. Keep track of that. There are some, things still at play here going forward that people need to be aware of, to at least follow through on it and see if things do get adopted or not by the end of the year.
Is this healthy for the subject?
No, I don't think it's healthy at all. I think it's been whiplash. I think people have been following it, spending a lot of time on it, pulling people aside in Congress, like Matt Laszlo has the whole time, asking about the difference between the drone swarms and the UAP incursions. And it does raise the visibility on these issues because everybody's talking about it. Are these drones? Are they UAPs? What's the difference? They seem to be overlapping. I mean, how many airports have been shut down just in the last 3 months? One in Spain, one in Copenhagen, multiple in Denmark that were shut down, Germany, Norway. So it's becoming a real huge issue, for everyone, commercially and militarily. So I think it's an important issue. But I do think we're going to see some of the open talks recede and things moving more behind the scenes because of those safety issues. I think you're going to see a legislation, more of it around drones. I think UAPs will probably be woven into that in terms of the policies, because it's going to come down to the decisions and how they take action. They have to. So it's good. It's good for one reason, but not for others.
Who's going to make the push?
Well, we already know our military is, not going to sit on idle hands or sit on their hands while all this drone activity and potential UAP incursion activity is happening. Their tip of the spear kind of stuff. But when you watch, I just watched Catherine Bigelow's movie House of Dynamite. I don't know if everybody in the chat has seen this or not, but one of the alarming things that came through in that movie is that we, the US, only have like a 50% hit rate on incursions coming in, nuclear. 50%. We have a 50% shot. And then the Department of Defense came out and said that's not true. It's much higher. Their sources weren't good for the movie. And she said no. She contacted multiple people and they said that number is accurate. So when you think about what Chris Mellon said at the beginning of Lou Elizondo's book, that there is this breakdown in the intelligence community with UAP intelligence that rivals the likes of 9/11, it has to be taken seriously now because of all these issues. The intelligence, the security state, who's getting information, what is a UAP incursion, what is a drone? I mean, with all this technology from Lockheed and Anduril of these autonomous drones, I mean, we're really getting into like a drone warfare kind of state. The US is.
Well, we see that already happening in the European fronts, and even in a lot of the wars that are starting up in Africa again. Is drone warfare is getting very, very ugly very, very quickly.
This disclosure, I think it's good for us to start reshaping it and reframing it into strategic. It's a strategic disclosure versus full disclosure. That's what we should start calling it. I think that's more an accurate name for it. Don't
What
you?
what's going to be missed? Is this strictly about technology? Are we going backwards now about the technology aspect of it all? Because we were starting to make real strides forward, that it could be alien life, that it could be some sort of time traveler, interdimensional or outer space being. We were starting to get into that conversation, but that seems to be winding down. Is it about just the technology again?
That's what I think. That's what I think. That's my personal take, is that we are going to hear less and less about NHI in this strategic disclosure that's about to happen. And we're going to see more about drones. We're going to see more about policy and
Right.
legislation, about identifying what it is. But the unknown aspect of it, being NHI or being otherworldly or being from a biosphere or whatever these other conversations have entertained, I think that is going to narrow very, very thinly.
Okay. So if that happens, then, in your opinion, do we then see an end to the whistleblowers? Do we then see an end to Arrow?
Yeah, I do. I think Arrow's scope is going to come down to, we've already seen in this new legislation that Arrow is asking for this new case management system. They're asking for a specific type of software that's going to allow them to integrate investigations, files, follow-ups. And so they're asking for like next level, next generation software for them to manage everything better. And they are calling it a matrix. There's actually even part of the policy that talks about this matrix that they're going to be required to do what you're just asking for reporting. And so that is also going to be, I think, compartmentalized in new ways, depending on the policy, the case management software, if they get it or not, and then how they do reporting and giving information back to the public. So yes, I do think it will be thinner and more narrow.
Okay, so if that happens, then, is this where all of a sudden a group like Enigma Labs sneaks in there to take over, in their hope, the research portion of it all? So that way the government still gets their information without having to be public about it. And they have a group out there that's, got the money in the background where they don't have to put their work through, or whatever they do, through FOIA requests. Does it look like that might be the direction? I know it sounds conspiratorial, but
It's not. No, I don't think it's conspiratorial. And here's why it makes perfect sense, right? Let's say they get this new case management system that they asked for, right? In this next budget round and the, NDAA, and they're required to basically take these overlapping systems that are happening in Arrow right now and streamline them in a new way through the case management software. And that all happens. What they'll be required to do is use that system to investigate, reporting, tracking, and the status of the cases and keep it all locked into Arrow. Why it makes sense what you're saying, okay, for this strategic disclosure, let's call it, is if there are other organizations, which we know that there are. There's Skywatcher, there's Phenom, there's Enigma, there's Nanu now, that's a new one.
hold that thought. We got to carry it over. I apologize, but we do have to carry that over to the next break, okay? Because it does get into a lot of where this movement is going. Courtney Marchesani is here. Which direction is disclosure heading? And will it be good for the public? We'll try and get some audience questions as well in the next half hour. This is Spaced Out Radio.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
Do you want the section number, or are you not going to look this up? If I put it on Twitter, maybe that's better.
What's the Sexton number?
It's the section 1556, requires a consolidated security classification guideline matrix.
Yeah, let's throw it up on both.
Okay. We can go into that when we come back. I have it all stepped out for you.
DOD.
DOD, stepping out the DOD lingo. But God, you're so intuitive because you know it all makes sense. And we'll break that out, but you asked the perfect question. And I didn't even have to prompt you. You just did it. That's what I love about you.
Well, I kind of pay attention sometimes, you know.
I know you do. I know you
Not
do.
all the time. Not all the time. But sometimes I pay attention. No, but the reality is about that entire subject is it's so easy to play out. Once you see it, it's easy to call the next move. Like, give an example. And this is an easier example for the public. If you look at Elon Musk, he says he's going to Mars. Okay, he has this dream about putting rockets to Mars. So what does he push his next ventures around? Okay, electric cars that can run eventually on solar power. He makes a boring company to drill holes under the earth. He then creates AI robotics that will help, or pardon me, he creates Neuralink to help people not have the pressures on their brain, or hopefully one day that Neuralink can fix things like blindness or people who are hearing impaired or spina bifida or paralysis. Let's hope. But every company that he has built is to go back to the original goal of colonizing Mars. The AI robots, who's going to build it in no atmosphere? It's not going to be humans. AI robots don't have to breathe. They're going to build the structures. So
right, they're building the infrastructure now for later.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you take that technology and then you take that game plan and you put it into UFOs, you can see how everything is being structured with who's going to get the toys, who's going to get the information out, how it's going to play out, and so on and so forth. It's a very simple structure.
Absolutely.
You take a bit, you take a bit, you take a bit, you take a bit, and then we'll glue it all together to create the puzzle.
And Eric Weinstein, in his latest, big podcast that he did, he was like, Elon wants to go to Mars. Is like, why can't he give me a couple billion just to do actual physics, on like anti-gravity? And I'm like, oh my God, there's such a disconnect. There's such a huge disconnect.
And this is no shot at Eric Weinstein or any scientists out there. Elon doesn't want dinosaurs who think it can't be done. He wants people to go above and beyond. And he wants people to say, it's going to be difficult, but if we did this, this, and this, it might work. And he's like, okay, we got the money, do it. See if it works.
There's a whole bunch of things I can say about all that, but I'm not gonna. I refuse. I thought that his comments about American physicists getting PhDs in physics, I'm talking about Eric Weinstein now, not being able to do actual physics on anti-gravity was well said. And I think it's a tragedy, an American tragedy, what he's speaking to. And so I listen to him really closely when he talks about Musk and the earth, and that we have this beautiful home right here and we should be working on that versus trying to jet off and do Jetson land in Mars.
Is Mars for us?
Well, if you listen to some of the old timers, that's where we originally came from.
Yeah.
You know.
Mars, but that's a whole different conversation.
I know it is. I'm just going with you.
All right. Let's say thank you to Area 54, Pam and Walter for the super chats. Thank you to all our new subscribers. Here we go at the next half hour. Here we go with the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We're talking disclosure with Courtney Marchesani tonight, UFO researcher, because one day I will break her of the habit of UAP. That's my goal in life. My goal, that is my New Year's resolution for 2026, to break Courtney Marchesani from the UAP stigma. She's better than that. Way better.
Life goals.
I'm teasing. Before we bring Courtney back in, let's remind you that all of our shows are free on every major podcast network and on YouTube. Our website, go to it. We got great swag on our store. You got the Bumblefoot. You got everything there. Let's just get to Courtney. Hell with what I have to say. I say it every half an hour. If you don't know it by now by listening to this show, then you gotta, just hit rewind or fast forward. That's all you got to do. All right, Courtney, let's get to it. Disclosure, controlled. It's a narrative that seems to be putting plants in place and stepping stones in place that many probably are not even recognizing that it's happening right in front of their very noses. And what's the intelligence world always say? The best place to hide something is right in front of your face.
Oh my gosh. I love that one story where Dodie had documents that were supposedly like classified or whatever. And so he worked this workaround where he typed them all up and put top secret on the front and did this whole workaround. And I guess there was an investigation and he was like, what are you going to do? I typed them up on my own computer and I put top secret on them. And he knew how to work the whole system. This was something that one of our SOR friends told me. And I was like, see, that's how you do a true workaround. You just, you know how to work the angles. We're just working what we got, which, you know what? Rock what you've got is what I say. And SOR, rock what you've got. The thing that we were talking about on the break that nobody heard is that there is this new section in the 2026 NDAA that nobody's really talking about, though, which I was asking Dave about. It's section 1556, requiring, quote, a consolidated security classification guideline matrix for AARO's office. So this is going into the new NDAA, which will likely, they'll all meet up in late December here. So what the provision says is that it would require the director of AARO to issue a security classification guidance matrix for programs related to UAPs. So everybody who's watching disclosure, that's a really important thing. I'm calling it strategic disclosure right now instead of, full disclosure or catastrophic disclosure or controlled disclosure, because it seems like they've learned what's failed. They have a strategy. It's still going to be pushed forward and we're going to know more, but it's not going to be full disclosure. So the same provision requires the director to provide a briefing to the House and the Senate Armed Services Committee no later than 30 days after the issue of the matrix, if it's approved. So we'll know after the NDAA passes if this matrix has been approved. It's going to be a requirement for AARO to follow it. They've asked for a new case management system to be approved. And Dave asked me before we went to the break, how is this going to lead to potential outside groups like Enigma or other apps or other types of reporting software to be used, either in concert, separately. And then what was the other thing that you said, Dave? There was one other piece of that was crucial to going forward and breaking this down.
Oh, goodness. Now you're putting me on the spot like that.
You asked me a specific question, and it totally pertains to this next push for strategic disclosure. What was it? Do you remember?
Well, are you talking about Enigma Labs?
Yeah.
And how could they be, as this subject starts to wind down, could they be the governmental interest in
Right.
getting the people who are reporting their stories? And that's why I think their app is really important, and they really don't have to give up anything. They don't need to investigate it. They're just collecting stories of where these events are happening.
Here's one of the answers to that. Consolidating of classified guidance across multiple UAP investigation and intelligence programs to reduce fragmentation or of classified authorities and contradictory processes. So here's how I see what you're saying potentially working. If this all gets approved, they get the case management system to keep all this consolidation within Arrow and updates for cases and investigations. The way in which outside groups like Enigma or Skywatcher or other types of groups that are getting data, that they don't release their raw data, the problem and the breakdown in the future will be if Arrow has all this case management system, they're going to have potentially duplicates, right, on case verification, where these different groups potentially would overlap or have the same case. So that's one way that lack of releasing of the raw data to everybody to work in concert, which we know that's not going to happen, makes it harder to get legislation in the future. That's one aspect, which would be a hard underpinning for disclosure in the first reason, and why it would close down, because the Arrow would essentially be this data bank that has everything wrapped up in one axle. But those other groups will still be data and collecting and reporting. So if they're not cross-chattering, if they're not talking, then it makes it much harder to push disclosure through, right? Because you don't have the cases, all the cases, to make a huge upstream push for disclosure.
And if Enigma Labs is allegedly taking reports from other UFO centers and claiming them as their own, number one, I'm surprised none of these reporting centers have offered a cease and desist if that is happening. Or number two, I am surprised that they aren't calling out the Enigma Labs, who, if they are allegedly doing it and taking reports, that should be brought out to the public that they've caught them doing this and using those reports as your own. It's plagiarism is what it is.
Well, yeah, but it's also like double reporting. And if there's clusters of things happening, then you can't compare the data. So there's, lack of reporting across all these different paradigms. Look at the Langley event in 2023, right? That was a big deal. There was an incursion. It was reportedly a UAP incursion, but there was also drones being discussed at the same time. This was before even the New Jersey drone incidents. The Pentagon still said they don't have good information on what occurred at Langley 2 years ago now. So it's a major information breakdown, and it is, alarming to me that they're going to be consolidating all this information and how they're going to use that, and maybe not potentially report as much to the public. We'll have to see. It doesn't say anything about that in the NDAA. What's being proposed. It just says it wants to streamline all the information and Arrow to have this new system to do it with. So whether outside parties would be potentially tapped for their data, and Skywatcher is a data-driven company that they say that's what they're about, but they still don't release all their raw data. And now with James Fowler leaving and taking on a government contract, I don't really know what will happen with Skywatcher and their actual data reporting to the public. They
I
haven't
don't
really
think that's coming out.
They haven't really commented on it. There's been really no news or updates. Sometimes they say there will be, new information.
sorry to cut
unless
you
you know
off there.
something. Yeah, maybe you
Sorry
know
to cut you
more.
off there, but from what I've heard from a couple of insiders is I think Skywatcher may be on life support.
Well,
I don't know why, but I've heard that they're not coming out with anything new. Then they've got no projects that are planned here in the near future, and they don't plan on releasing any evidence right now.
yeah, well, I think that the problems are going to be classification and overclassification as usual. You've heard from the task force and at the hearing that they're really pushing to stop overclassification, and their big push now with the task force and even follow-up hearings is going to be to move to declassify quickly and more UAP records release. And so that's going to be their big push from the hearings. And then from the whistleblower standpoint, I think they're going to try to work in more protections for whistleblowers going forward, but it still doesn't answer the arrow question. We'll have to know more next year when the NDAA passes, if this whole thing gets adopted, and then they have the new system, and then they have 30 days to follow up on it.
Let me follow up with what you're just saying, to steal one of your terms. If they're trying to get rid of disclosure, does Arrow then maybe not move it more into an internal background rather than being a public figure for this topic? Because
We've
it will
already-
not be necessary.
We've already seen signs of that. I know a couple people who worked on Arrow when some of the first whistleblower cases were covered and that first report was sent out. And what they did was they took everything off the front end of the website, all documents, all reports, all information. They put most of it on the back end of the website. So only people in Arrow could see the cases. And now the report was put out already, but then they had, information on whistleblower cases, what had been reported, how it had been dismissed or proven not UAP or related. So some of that has already happened. It's already gone into the back end of the Arrow website for only the folks that work at Arrow. That was the other thing that people have criticized Arrow about, especially at the last hearing, that there was lack of transparency, lack of information already happening, and that the Arrow needed to be accountable in the future going forward. So I think that they will be held to account and taken to task for a lot of the public reporting, because it was a public office set up to do UAP reports for the public. So they won't be able to get off the hook completely, but I think we will see more of that happening behind the scenes rather than on the fly, openly in the public eye.
If
Definitely.
this all transpires, what happens to Anna Paulina Luna's conspiracy club?
Who is that? Do you mean, is that the UAP caucus, or who are you pointing
No,
at?
that's the whole
specifically?
government, where I always forget it. I just call it the conspiracy club, where Tim Burchett, Nancy Mace, Anna Paulina Luna, the people from the hearings. Okay, they've gone into JFK, they've gone into Martin Luther King. I keep forgetting what the name of it is. I just call it the conspiracy club.
It's the Secrets Task Force. That's the official name of it. That was the last hearing that was, propped up, was restoring the public trust in the government, So I think that the conspiracy club is well alive. They've had a bunch of hiccups because of their own lack of, having clearance to take the testimonies of some of these whistleblowers. But I do think they're alive and well for at least, another month. They got cleared for 6 months. They had a 6-month extension after they had their first term. So that's going to end here shortly. So the conspiracy club, as you call it, might be dead, or maybe they'll get another extension to keep moving forward. I don't know. I haven't heard any scuttlebutt about that at all, about their upcoming deadline.
All right, let's get to some audience questions here.
Okay.
Here's a good one to start with. Bad cop, no donuts. Who are considered the nut bars?
We are. We're the nut bars. Dave announces every show that he's got his tinfoil hat on and his tinfoil underwear. We are the nut bars.
I think it goes a little bit further than that, though.
Go ahead.
Besides your ordinary podcast or radio show, there are a lot of people who are, I'm going to use this term very, very carefully, mentally ill when it comes to this subject. Okay, that have sent politicians very threatening letters.
Yes.
They have doxed people online, going after their families, going after their friends, going after their spouses, death threats galore. These are the people that have literally, because of their actions, have turned a lot of these government scientists and, lack of a better term, whistleblowers against the UFO public. And we don't take enough time to recognize that there are a lot of sick individuals out there who think that by threatening the life of, whether you like him or not, Lou Elizondo or Chris Mellon or Gary Nolan or Tim Burchett or Anna Polina Luna or any of these people, by threatening them that they're going to move the ball forward on this. And it's been ugly, and they're tired of it. And unfortunately, they wield a big stick. That's where I think it is.
It's a mob mentality. There's a huge mob mentality of individuals in the UFO community. It's not just now, it's been going on forever. That just they take things too far. And we're seeing it hit critical mass. And the whistleblowers have been threatened, and they've said how they've been threatened. And there's even some accusations of things like dues and weapons attacks by certain foreign actors. And so it's a very difficult field. It's not one to take lightly to get in it. And I think that whole cliche of the nut bars is really kind of what we're known for. And there's a lot of people that give the good nut bars a bad name.
Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, there's a lot of social media platforms right now that allow this behavior to happen. Whether it's on X, a lot of it is happening on Discord. A lot of it is happening on other social media platforms as well. But X and Discord are probably the two most prevalent. That's for sure. Right? Let's go to
Yeah.
another question. Let's go to Super Crazy. Do you know if the age of disclosure will be the same version that was screened earlier this year, or will there be some additions or subtractions?
Oh, I know there's a director's cut. I was told that by people who were in the film that didn't make the screened versions, but I don't know if it'll be a director's cut or not. Sorry. I wish I did.
I hope it is. I hope it is. Back to Super Crazy. Do you think the government is holding living alien beings against their will? And do you think people like Jay Stratton or Hal Puthoff, James Lukatsky, or Carl Nell have seen them in person?
Jay Stratton at the screening for Age of Disclosure said a comment when somebody asked him, like, do you think we'll ever get to see the bodies? And he said, how do you know I haven't? Right. So there are some people like James Lukatsky who said he was in the craft. He put his hand on the wall. There are rumors that Hal Puthoff is the guy behind the famous tape, down in down in Area 51, that he saw the bodies, but I don't know that. There's just allegations. So all these people, yes, have been alleged, rumored, linked to have seen something, NHI related, but I can't say that for sure. I just know what I've tracked down and what I watch and observe from the community and what they comment on.
Let's move on here. Let's go to Derek. Do you think, or do you have information on where non-human intelligence is being held?
No, I don't have any information like that. Jay Stratton did say during the live Q&A portion of the Age of Disclosure down in South by Southwest, he said that he gave addresses, he reported everything, and nothing was done. So I don't know of the addresses that he gave, if any NHI were being held there. I just want to clarify that distinction, but he did say he reported addresses during his time at the UAP task force.
We have 5 minutes to go. Let's go to Jules here. Is remote viewing included amongst the intelligence of the anomalous? Is this something they don't want to discuss?
I mean, it comes up now. I just saw that Luna was looking at the CIA reading room history of SRI for like the first time ever. That was just this summer. And I was like, oh my gosh, how can they be reading about SRI for the first time in the CIA reading room? But they're very far behind the curve. I know that David Grush would obviously have been aware of SRI and its history and, you know, the FBI raid and the Scientology connections and Pat Price and all that. He would have known. He would have gotten the history from Hal Puthoff or other people, but it seems like they are just not generally aware, and there's a steep learning curve to learn all this stuff. So I think there's still a lot of compartmentalization happening. They're still working on certain lines. I know that David Grush is definitely helping on the task force, leading them into certain areas and lines of research to guide them. But I've also been told that Luna staffers just are not aware of these issues at all. And they don't even feel comfortable having the committee meetings unless David Grush is there because he's so knowledgeable and they're not. So I don't know. That's a mixed question. I think some people are probably pretty aware of it, but certainly not all. And Luna being the head of this, having potentially Title 10 and 50 clearances and reading at the reading room the first time just a couple months ago, it doesn't bode well.
I also, if I can add to that for a quick moment, I think it's any project. It's not just remote viewing.
Yeah.
It's any project that deals in any sort of part of the phenomena that they do not want to discuss. I mean, whether it's MK Ultra, whether it's My Labs, whether it's alien abduction or astral travel, near-death experiences, remote viewing, whatever you want to call it. I think there is a real push right now to try and shy away from any of these topics. I think it may have gotten out of hand a little bit. If you recall in the last hearing or was it 2 hearings ago, where the questions were coming out about alien hybrids, human hybrids. It came out about that question. I think it was 2 hearings ago.
It was 2 hearings ago, and they asked, it was during the Immaculate Constellation testimony, and they asked
Right.
Lou Schellenberger, and they said, are you aware of an alien hybrid program? And they all said no. I was like shocked, but I guess that maybe that means firsthand involvement, firsthand witness. I don't know, but I was like blown away that they had never encountered that information because it's definitely out there. And they had every other thing in that Immaculate Constellation document that they loaded up. But Julie, I will tell you this, you bring this to mind. So one of the big updates is that along with, you know, Dan Sherman coming out, Jordan Jozak came out and he was on Skywatcher's team. And I'm actually the person that brought him out into the community. I had done an interview with him last May after Contact in the Desert. And he was a child in a child program. And I investigated his whole history and his story. And I have like all the psychologists' names and all the individuals that were involved in his specific case. But, you know, he got recruited to Skywatcher right after he did that interview with me on X. So he worked with Skywatcher as a psionic. He did appear on, you know, a couple of the interviews that they did and the field trials that they showed, but he just came out publicly and talked about being a kid in a program and then working for Skywatcher, and that Jake Barber also was a kid in the GATE program. So I do think that, especially with Skywatcher's exposure and their, you know, their whole discovery framework, they include that in their business and in their raw data of testing psionics. So I know that Skywatcher talked about having relationships with Arrow, potentially being connected with Arrow. So that would be one way that the whole remote viewing program would be introduced into these more government run task force or projects or accountability frameworks. That's a good point to make.
Courtney, it is unfortunately that time of the night where we have to say good night to you. It flew on by. Thank you very much for the latest update. And you know, you always have an open door anytime you want to come into SOR and give us an update. So thank you very, very much. Coming up next on Spaced Out Radio, Swamp Dweller will kick things off. Then the Wizard will come on in here for a couple of weird UFO anniversaries. Yes, Spaced Out Radio's Hour 3 is next.
To Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
Hey, thanks for.
No problem. No problem. What I want to do is when I'm done the show, I'll give you a phone call. You going to be awake? Your mic's on mute. Or did I mute you? No, I didn't mute you. You're muted. If you go over your little, yeah, I'll call you after the show. All right. Figure out, I'll get all the juicy stuff. All right, there goes Courtney. The Wizard is next. And I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Don't go. Don't go away, man. Don't go. Please don't go. Please don't go. Courtney's amazing, isn't she? She's just amazing. Agnostic, how you doing? Welcome to our chat. Who else jumped in here? The Wizard jumped in because he forgot about the time change. Who else? Jace says, welcome to our chat. Purple Cutfish, nice to see you. Body Tech, good morning to you, my fellow Commonwealther. Thank you tonight to Walter, to Pam, to Area 54, and to Mel WD40 and Luscious Jewels for gifting a couple of memberships there. Thank you very much. Radio Wendigo, how are you? Sylvain Gano, nice to have you here. Don't forget you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag, so make sure you check it on out. And we're coming back here in about 5 seconds. Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We have Swamp Dweller and the UFO Wizard coming up next on the show to take us right home tonight. Hey, we want to say hello to everyone tuning us in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Schizotrichia. Schizotrichia is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night, right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp. This is my sister's experience. Now, my sister is 22 years old, married, and has a very small child. They live in a beautiful 4-bed, 2-bathroom house. But the only downside is there is a trailer park, basically in their front yard. She and her husband had lived in their home about a year when the incident occurred. Kelsey, my sister, is absolutely gorgeous. Blonde hair, tall, thin, and all around pleasant. She has had a stalker problem in the past, which I'll ask if I can share at a later time. But this one experience beats all of them. She had just put the baby down for a nap and needed to get some work done in the yard. So she grabbed the baby monitor, locked the house, and proceeded to go to the yard and do some weeding. She is a very, very paranoid person, so she's always aware of her surroundings. As she was tending to her garden, she noticed something in the corner of her eye. There was a man about 200 feet away, just standing in the middle of the trailer park, staring right at her. She quickly turned back to her duties and brushed it off. However, she did try to keep her in her peripherals. After a few minutes, she got a chilling feeling that he moved closer. As she suspected, he was now at the stop sign, which was 100 to 125 feet away from her. She described him as standing in the normal anatomical stance, feet shoulder width apart, palms facing forward or facing her, blank stare, etc. Kelsey, pretending not to see him, carried on, but this time moved to the garbage bins to dispose of the weeds. As she headed towards the bins, she caught him moving closer to her. They both made eye contact, so she was 100% sure that he saw her, and she wouldn't be able to play this one off. At this point, she's 80 feet away from him. It's a 15-foot sprint to the house. also realizing that she has to unlock the door as well, which will give him time to catch up to her. The moment she begins to run, he sprints towards her. She made sure that she had her key ready before she made her mad dash for the house. So she got in at about the time he was on the front porch. As soon as she slammed the door and locked it, he turned away and trekked back into the glum trailer park. Kelsey called her husband, who then came rushing home, then called the cops. The man described was never found. She even mentioned him getting a haircut or trimming his beard, but no one in the trailer park matched any of their descriptions. Hopefully it won't happen again, but we're all keeping our fingers crossed, and that maybe he's too scared to show his face again.
Thank you, Swamp Dweller, for another creepy story. If you want more just like that, head on over to his YouTube channel, click on Swamp Dweller, hit subscribe, ring that bell. Thousands of stories for you to choose from each and every night. It's time for the UFO Report. Here's the Wizard.
Space Out Radio presents a UFO report. The UFO that makes its presence known. Just ready to go.
Well, the Wizard is back on Spaced Out Radio. He forgot about the stupid, ridiculous daylight savings time because, it took really smart people to think that if you cut an hour off the bottom and glue it to the top, that you would actually get more daylight.
Yeah. Well, and like we've talked about before, I think Arizona, aside from the Navajo Nation here, doesn't observe daylight savings time. And so my time stays the same, but my relative time to everybody else changes, which is, for somebody who's in their day job, a global consultant, it's rather annoying. So, yeah.
You know what I will say about this is this. The holdup, what a lot of people don't know is the holdup on daylight savings time is California. British Columbia, where I live, along with Washington State and Oregon, have all voted to get rid of daylight savings time. And unfortunately, because most of the business is done in trade or whatever with California refuses to get rid of daylight savings time. Therefore, everybody else has to suffer on the West Coast.
Well,
it's ridiculous.
I don't know if you know this or not, but the U.S. House in, I think it was 2022, the U.S. House voted to end daylight savings time. It would have been effective for the U.S. universally in 2025. This year would have been the effective date. It went to the Senate for the Senate to vote on it. And the next day, the Ukraine-Russia war broke out. And now there were bigger fish to fry, so to speak, and it disappeared into the blank spaces of Congress.
Yeah, we got to get rid of it. It's time for it to go away.
Yeah. Now that we have a global economy and there really is no downtime, there's no, like we said, there's really no, I think, reason to keep it around anymore.
No, it's time to go away. And it's time for it to be put to pasture with the rest of the farming equipment and the animals. Because you know what? The animals don't tell time.
No. In fact, my dog, when we were on, when I was in Kentucky and we were on, we observed daylight savings time, my dog never observed the time change. So he would always wake me up to go outside and go to the bathroom or to get fed, because in his mind, it's feed time.
Exactly. We had an interesting couple of anniversaries, one past and one coming up here.
Yep.
And Wednesday is going to be a very special show for us because it will be the 50th anniversary of the Travis Walton abduction incident. And Steve Pierce, who was a 17-year-old or 18-year-old, I believe, at that time, youngest member of the crew, will be on the show to talk about the Travis Walton incident. He was here a number of weeks ago, probably 6-8 weeks ago, and he basically told his side of the story, but he wanted to come back on the 50th anniversary to discuss this because he believes there's more that he has to say, and he was a little bit nervous, on that first show because he doesn't do a lot of interviews with it. But for some reason, he trusts us and feels we'll give him a fair and balanced interview, which made me feel pretty good.
Yeah.
And we're going to be doing that. But imagine that 50 years since the Travis Walton incident, man.
Yeah, it's for Travis, I would imagine it's 50 years of probably feeling constant attack from a lot of the UFO community because his story doesn't track with what what they're willing to accept or believe. So especially I would say even more since Twitter/X came into existence and then Reddit as well.
Do you think, looking back on that story and the controversies that have happened around that, because Travis and Mike Rogers, to a little bit lesser extent, cashed in on this, while the rest of the crew basically got nothing out of it, out of this story? Do you think that the animosity re- doesn't so much revolve around what happened that day, but revolves around what the aftermath was since then, with the movies, the documentaries, the books, everything, and only basically Travis and Mike Rogers getting paid off on it?
I mean, it could be for sure. And I've often wondered if it's that if it's the missed opportunities, let's say, that have driven some of the other individuals to recently come out and make statements that are contradictory to what was originally stated when the incident occurred. In an effort to try to basically drum up controversy towards the sell of of one of their books or whatever the case may be. I think that there's a really bad and negative thing that gets associated to people who have, for lack of a better word, extraordinary experiences. And that is, if the person has an extraordinary experience and they seek to monetize it in any way, shape, or form, whether it's just getting paid to speak on the topic, for some reason, everybody then suddenly discounts their story. But why is that? Why is someone not allowed to earn any type of financial benefit from people who are willing to pay it to hear more about their story or to have it made into a movie or whatever the case would be? Like, what is the hypocrisy there? Because any one of us, if somebody approached us and said, "Hey, we want to turn your story into a movie," I guarantee you, everybody listening would jump at the chance to make some money off of that exchange. But when we see other people do it, it's like we somehow diminish their experience in some way.
I would agree with you on that. And that opens up a whole different can of worms, because I think people should be able to make money. Okay. It's weird how people can justify a movie star making 20 million a film, but they can't justify a YouTube channel making $100 a month or $1,000 a month off of YouTube programming or TikTok or whatever it may be. It amazes me how that happens. and I don't agree with it. I think if you love something and you figured out a way that you can monetize the field that you love, go for it.
Yeah.
Right? I love my daytime job. Guess what? I get paid to do my daytime job.
Right.
I love this radio show. I get paid, not much. If I didn't have my daytime job, I definitely would be forced to eat macaroni and cheese. Okay. If I was lucky. Okay.
Yep.
I'd definitely be a lot thinner because I wouldn't eat as much.
Yeah.
But
a lot of
either way,
ramen
I
noodles
love
in your
this
diet.
show, and what I make off this show, I'm very thankful for. Right? And I just don't understand that logic of it's not good to make money. But that being said, in an incident like the Travis Walton incident, okay, where there were 7 people in that truck, not 6 like the movie said, there were 7, and for 5 out of the 7 who really didn't get their just desserts or their story told, I could see where there would be a little bit of jealousy and maybe even a little animosity over it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm a little mixed on this because the vast majority of the Travis Walton incident, what we'll call it 90%, involves Travis Walton. The other 10% are the accounts from the other members or for the other individuals in the truck, but their accounts really just help to substantiate parts of Travis's account of what occurred, right?
Very true.
So it's kind of like and this is maybe not quite the right analogy, but let's say that you're in somebody is in a car accident, and 2 pedestrians were walking by and they witnessed the accident and they gave testimony to the police. And the person you were in an accident with was, I don't know, driving drunk or something, and so you sue them and the insurance company settles. Should you then need to pay the 2 witnesses that help corroborate your story?
Good call. There's definitely a lot of intriguing thought into that.
So, I mean, the 2 witnesses, if they also then want to try to do something and try to pursue money, that's up to them, right? But they have to put in the work in order to do that. And so, if the other, 6 guys, 7 guys that were involved, they wanted to make something of it, they need to put in the work to make something of it. And if they chose not to do that in the moment, and they lost that opportunity, all they really have to be mad or disgruntled about is that they didn't jump on the opportunity when it presented itself.
Well, I think it impacted everybody differently too, because when Travis was taken for those 5 days, let's remember these guys were accused of murder.
Right.
They went through lie detector tests, and as much as they were telling the truth on what happened, nobody wanted to hear their story. Nobody wanted to believe them. And a lot of them in that crew turned to drugs and alcohol to escape the reality of what happened. And I think we forget the emotional factor of everything that happened on that incident.
Yeah, I don't mean to diminish, everything that they went through in those 5 days that Travis was missing. All I'm trying to say is that don't be mad at Travis because he did something with it. If there's probably a different side of the coin type documentary to be made about all of the other stuff while Travis was missing. If I don't think I've ever seen that side of the story told. But you've got to take the initiative. You've got to write that into a book. If you're not a good writer, get a ghostwriter. I mean, now with AI, there's no reason why you can't write a book. But I mean, tell that side of the story.
No, I would agree with you on that. And I don't know if it's too little, too late. I don't know if it would even matter at this point, since I believe more than half the crew has passed away now. And I think it's just a matter of trying to, kind of know. Like, I know Steve, when we interviewed Steve Pierce, who we'll interview in a couple nights' time here on it, he was telling us he didn't even see the movie until years after it came out. He didn't even know it was out because he totally took himself right out of the realm of UFOs and aliens. He wanted nothing to do with it.
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely see that side of it too, right? It burned him. And that was the community in the 70s. I couldn't even imagine the community, these days. My biggest advice with him would be, don't read the comments on anything that gets posted online. Because people are not nice, especially, in the anonymity of online, posts and things. I think what also is really interesting and maybe worth exploring, along with what happened the 5 days, is kind of the whole aspect of the emotional toll that it takes on somebody who is an experiencer. Um, Most of the people that I've talked to who are experiencers, after they've processed through their experience, most tend to look at it either in a neutral light or potentially a positive light. Some still look at it in a negative way. But it takes a long time for people to process through what it means to be an experiencer, what it means like for them personally, and then also what it means for kind of the nature of reality. And I think that's an area that we don't really spend a lot of time as a community acknowledging, is the emotional toll that it takes. Being rejected potentially by family and friends, and I think it's always been a part of the UFO experiencer condition, to kind of be initially rejected by anybody who hears your tale. Whether you believe 100% that it occurred, or you're still questioning whether it occurred, you try to um, talk to your friends and family about it and are immediately rejected. You're ridiculed in the public. Even now, as open as the topic is, there are still people who are reluctant to talk about their experiences in an open setting because
Very
of
true.
the emotional trauma that comes along with it.
I just hope that, and maybe it's a little bit too late and too long. I would just hope that these guys could get along, because this has divided a lot of people and divided many people within the
Yeah.
Snowflake, Arizona community. And there are still people to this day who think that it was all made up, that it was never a reality.
Well, and those people are, they seem to all congregate on X and Reddit. But until they have their own experience, there's nothing they're going to see or hear or whatever that's going to make them believe.
Josh Rutledge and the Wizard continue the UFO report right after this.
This is Spaced Out Radio and your host, Dave Scott.
All right, here we go.
Here we go. So I'm supposed to get up at 5 in the morning and wake my wife up so we can go to the gym
Oh,
before I
no.
have to get my kids up to go to school. We're going to try to get healthy. But that was before I remembered daylight savings time. So I'm not going to get to bed until like 1 or 1:30. I don't know if I'm going to say, well, turn around and get up in 3.5 hours and go to the gym. So
Well, you know what? That's up to you, my friend.
I know that's an adulting problem, Dave.
You got that right.
And it's like an older adulting problem, you know. Um, maybe I'll get her up and she can go to the gym, and then I'll go at like 9 o'clock in the morning or something.
Right? That would
Yeah,
work.
I've tried over the years to buy gym equipment. With the whole idea of if it's in my house, I'm more likely to use it.
Yeah,
No,
no. That's not the
that
case.
doesn't work.
I bought an elliptical for that.
It became a coat rack, didn't it?
It's not a coat rack, but it has been a leaner of mops and brooms. Yeah, I find I'm more motivated to work out in a gym than I
Yeah.
am at
There-
home.
there- yeah, there's something about like just getting out the door makes it easier. I saw a thing that said that one of the things we struggle with is folding clothes. We can wash them, dry them, and then we forget to fold them. And so I saw a thing that said, tell your brain you can fold one shirt, and then fold one shirt, and more than likely the thing of well, it's all or nothing is going to kick in, and you're going to end up folding all the laundry just because you told yourself you could fold one shirt. So if I tell myself I can get out the door, that's the first step. And then once I get to the gym, I can do all the things. So
Yeah, I struggle with socks.
oh yeah, we have like baskets of mismatched socks. I mean, some of them, Dave, are like small and tiny from when my kids were little babies.
And how old are they now?
They're 11.
You might want to throw those socks out. I have a problem in my house where my son's feet have grown almost 2 inches in the last 8 months.
Yeah.
And I caught him the other day and again today wearing my socks.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, dude, those are mine. He's like, yeah, but they fit and they're comfortable. I'm like, so you're stealing my socks? He goes, yep. I'm like, come on.
Yep. One of my daughters is tall. She's already almost 5'4" at 11. And she wears a size 10 women's shoe. And so
Oh my.
she wears my socks. So yeah.
Yeah.
And
Caught
the
my
other
son.
one, I've got twins. The other one is short, barely like 5'4" or 4'4", 4'6". So it's like the movie Twins with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny
Oh
DeVito.
my.
So yeah.
Do your daughters have that twin thing going on? You got 2 daughters, right?
Mhm.
Do they have that twin thing going on with their brains?
A little bit. It's really funny. They're bored out of their minds if the other one's not there. But when the other one is there, all they do is just sit in the same room together and don't interact unless they're fighting. So
Bad cop pro tip: hang all shirts on hangers. Fold jeans in thirds. I put everything on a hanger. I put all my pants, my jeans, my dress slacks, everything is on a hanger. My t-shirts, my dress shirts. The only thing I use a drawer for is my shorts, my underwear, and my socks. That's it. Well, my
I
pajama bottoms.
I've got a bunch of dress shirts from when I used to have to go in the office. I haven't worn them in probably 5 years. They just hang in my closet just in case.
1 second. We're going to come back here in 5 seconds. Thank you to Shaq Filet, Walter, Pam, and Area 54 for the super chats. Here we go with the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Our guest, the UFO wizard, Josh Rutledge. Not a fan of daylight savings time right now. Not at all, but none of us are. Nobody likes daylight savings time. Keep it one time. That's it. Just keep it where it is. Okay? Keep the brightness in the afternoon, not in the morning. Can we just get back to normal? All right. Daylight savings time, that's good. Let's get rid of standard time. Let's just do it. If you want to catch any of our archives, you can on YouTube or any major podcast network. Guess what, Josh? Guess what? My archives are always free.
Wow.
Always free. You pay
Holy
for so
smokes.
much in this world. Guess what? You can listen to our show for free. Website, spacedoutradio.com. We got a lot of cool stuff there, including shopping at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag. No ugly swag, so check it on out. We're all over social media, and now we bring in the wizard. Another anniversary, or do you want to continue with Travis Walton?
I think we've covered that one quite a bit.
All right. Another anniversary here, if you haven't heard about it. If you don't know who Frederick Valentich is, it's somebody in the UFO world. This story is incredible. You want me to read it, Josh, or you want to go for it?
I can take it if you like.
You take it, man.
Yep. So this guy is this happened in October 21st, 1978. He was an amateur pilot. He had tried out to be a part of the Royal Australian Air Force a couple of times, but had been rejected due to educational qualifications. But at 20 years old, he had about 150 hours of flying experience, and he held a Class 4 instrument rating, which is a permitted night flight under visible meteorological conditions. Okay, so he's flying out to King Island in Australia, right off the coast of Melbourne there. And he radios in on the evening of Saturday, 21st October 1978, and he says, "Hey, I've got a strange light over top of me." And this happened at 1906, so 7:06 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. There it is again, Dave, the standard time. And he said he thought there was another aircraft above him at about 4,500 feet, but none was shown on radar. He described the lights and said the object was orbiting above him, and eventually said it is not an aircraft. The final transmission was included a metallic scraping, often described as a weird noise before the contact was lost. A search and rescue operation was launched, and almost immediately, but no trace of the aircraft or Valentich was definitively found. An official investigation by the Australian Department of Transport concluded the cause was undetermined, though they presumed the flight ended fatally. In 1983, a piece of aircraft, a cowling flap, washed ashore on Flinders Island, which was identified as belonging to a Cessna 182 of a serial number range that included Valentich's plane, yet it still did not definitively prove that it was his plane. So this is one of, like you said, an old case, one of the bigger cases in Australian lore for a UFO disappearance.
I tend to want to believe this story. I do. I really want to believe this story. Not for the tragedy of this young man, okay, who just wanted to be a pilot. That was his whole goal in life, was to be a pilot. But there is something really strange. The fact that it's one of two things. He saw what he saw and was reporting it in, or he didn't see what he saw, upset that he had been rejected by the RAAF, the Royal Australian Air Force, a pair of times, and decided, well, if I can't fly for them, I'm not going to fly for anybody. So I'm going to go out the way I want. But the problem with that theory is when they were looking for him at the coordinates where he went silent, at that point, there was no debris in any of the water or on the ground surrounding the area. Nothing had washed up on shore for years. Like you just mentioned, that there could have been a possibility. So the question is, what happened?
Well, and you know, this type of Cessna plane that he was in, my dad used to fly those. I remember as a kid going up in them, and they're not very big. They're like, you know, at most a 5-seater. Most of the ones my dad flew around in were like 3-seaters, though, 2 in the front, 1 in the back. And all the fuel is held in the wings of the craft, and so if you have to ditch it in the water, typically there's a little bit of buoyancy, I think, in at least the wings, which are above the fuselage, but still, you would think it would have floated for a while, you know, if they were searching. So the other possibility is that it did crash, and it was so far away from its last known reporting point that they were looking in the wrong place.
Could be. Say the same thing for flight MH370.
Yep, and really the same thing for, you know, Amelia Earhart, who also went missing in the kind of the similar vicinity.
I just want to believe it's aliens. I do.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it'd be great if it was a Close Encounters of the Third Kind situation, and all of a sudden, you know, the plane showed up and the pilots were brought back and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those situations where we will probably never really know the answer. You know, we can have people can remote view the situation, and we can have channelers talk about it, and we can do dowsing sessions and pendulum things and get all kinds of answers and information, but we'll never truly know what happened.
You think it was UFO?
It's possible. I don't know what else you know, if there was no airplane on radar, you know, some of the skeptical positions is that, you know, he misinterpreted like his own lights reflecting off of the clouds, or he misinterpreted stars or planets, but no one would misinterpret stars and planets and think that's another plane 3,000 feet above me and call that in. Now,
Right.
and now, you know, the only part of me that questions even that statement that I just made is the fact that he was rejected from the RAAF for educational issues. And so maybe he would have, you know, questioned if he saw bright planets or stars as being something other than. But I mean, he had 150 flight hours, and he had a license that approved him for flying at night, which means he had to have shown that he was capable of flying at night. He had to have known what was in the night sky. So it's just so odd. Do I think it was a UFO? In the truest sense of the word, that it was an unidentified flying object that interact with him? Yes. Do I think it was an alien craft, which is probably more like what you're asking me? I don't know.
I want it to be, man. I do. There are certain ones that I want. This is one of them. This is definitely one of them that I want to believe the original narrative because of the recorded tape of his voice describing it. And I think for a lot of the skeptics out there, what they don't understand is there is a very strict radio protocol when you are a pilot. You cannot play games in those situations because control tower has to know every move you are making, where you're going, what's your destination, how long are you going to be in the air, how's your fuel situation, is there anybody or anything around you? Okay, they want to know. They're in constant communication with their pilots. So it is a little bit ridiculous at times when we get these situations from these armchair quarterbacks who are sitting here saying, Josh, that, oh, there's no way it could have been a UFO. It had to be reflection on a cloud or Venus or whatever it may be. Now, I'm not saying that pilots can't get a little, mixed up.
Yeah.
Okay. They are human after all, but there is a protocol to the radio. And I think, especially with that scraping sound that came right after it, that was kind of odd.
Well, let me float a potential alternative scenario. What if he flew into a portal and the scraping sound was electromagnetic feedback on the radio from the portal that he flew into?
Yeah. Could have been.
Because I do think that there are portals all over the planet, and they open and close sometimes randomly, sometimes on purpose. And I do think things can temporarily pass into those portals. And if you pass through a portal that takes you somewhere else and you don't know how to reopen it or how to get back to where you were, then you're missing. I wonder if a lot of the missing 401 stuff is just people wandering into portals and then they don't know how to get back.
Agree with you there. We have 8.5 minutes to go before we have to say goodnight to you. What else do you got for us tonight?
I got a couple things. So Stephen Greer did an interview with Gaia a couple of days ago, and he said that Avi Loeb is a psyop, and that they are using him to push the threat narrative with 3i Atlas. I don't know how much I agree with that, because I have not heard from Avi anything that ties to the threat narrative that we've heard with all the UAP stuff.
Yeah.
I think Avi is just saying basically, because we don't know what it is, you can't rule out, intelligent alien tech. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
I would 100% agree with you. I think at times Stephen Greer says some very grandiose comments about people who are getting into his popularity and eating up his popularity. He wants to be a one-man show in this field. He doesn't want anybody else talking disclosure but him.
Yep.
He wants it so bad he can taste it. Okay. Now, I'm not saying the guy isn't connected. I'm not saying the guy isn't being given proper information. I don't know. I can't say anything about that. But it seems like I think Avi Loeb, the Stanford the Harvard astrophysicist, he literally said it's likely another comet or asteroid.
Right.
but we can't rule it out.
Yep. That's all he wants is
That's
for
all he
mainstream
said is,
science
we can't rule it out.
to just say, yeah, we can't rule it out. That's all he wants.
So I'm
Also,
not sure where that becomes automatically a
No.
psyops option.
like you said, that was the feeling that I got as well, is that everybody's talking about Avi and Three Eye Atlas, and Greer is losing some of his limelight, and so he went into attack mode.
Yeah.
I'll also on the topic of Three Eye Atlas, it is coming out of the other side other side. It's coming from around the sun, and it is showing non-gravitational acceleration. Now, this can also happen with basically the dust plume that occurs when things gets close to the sun and release a lot of gas and things. That release of gas can cause it to push or accelerate. But before it went behind the sun, what science had said, even non-Avi Loeb science people had said, hey, if it comes out from the other side of the sun and we see non-gravitational acceleration, that might be an indication that it's not anything we've seen before. And that's what we're seeing, is non-gravitational acceleration. Now, it's not at a point yet where we can get a picture of it with all of our tech that we have, but maybe that leads to, gives Avi's thing a little more credibility.
What do you think it is?
So I would say that I am 50-50 split on two things. One is it's just a comet. It's a comet that's made up of stuff somewhere in our galaxy that we've not encountered yet, and so it is behaving differently than what we've been exposed to thus far. The other 50% is I've done actually 3 different dowsing sessions now with different groups of people, and in each one, Three Eye Atlas has come up as a topic, and in all 3 sessions, the information that was provided was the same, that it is itself a living entity, and it is just passing through. If you want to think space whale in the Star Wars, universe, that's kind of what the message was. So, that's so I'm 50-50 on that.
You're there for a second talking about the threat narrative. Okay, I have been a very much an anti-threat narrative guy since it started coming out with the Stars Academy, which we just celebrated their 7th anniversary or 8th anniversary. I've never been a proponent of the threat narrative. I've told our audience over the years to be careful of buying into it.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to pick and choose. Who are you going after? If you want to if you're Dr. Stephen Greer and you want to go after the government saying they're using this threat narrative to create budgets, go for it. You can say that because that's true. But when you start accusing people of being psyops because they mention it and they're a psyop towards the threat narrative, Avi Loeb has never said anything threatening.
No, he's nothing that Avi has ever said could be any way, shape, or form linked to this whole false flag activity that Greer, because for Greer it's not just a threat negative, it's the threat or the threat oh my goodness, the threat story. It's a threat story leading to a false flag event.
Yes.
But Avi has never said anything. None of his interviews, his Medium articles that he's written, his papers, none of it talks about a potential threat to the world at all. So, like I said, all he wants is for people to consider the possibility that it could be alien tech simply because we don't know what it is.
And quickly here, we got just over 2 minutes. your next thought that you had for tonight's report.
So I've got a message. I've got some stuff here I pulled from X, and it's been verified. At the Seoul Symposium, Jake Barber was there, and we talked about it a couple weeks back. The Skywatcher kind of went silent. They haven't released any new information lately. Apparently, at the Seoul Symposium, Jake said that their fully open approach to UAP research backfired amid government secrecy. And now in level 3, focused on data analysis and independent review, he says results should drop by year's end, and hinted their work may have sparked the Palmdale UFO flap.
Oh, goodness. Here we go. So now they're making claims that they, like Stephen Greer, caused the Phoenix Lights.
Yeah. I guess that what they're saying, right, is because they're operating in Palmdale, they're doing the psionics activities. That must be why the UAP flap is occurring. It's rather, I don't know, egotistical, I think, to make that statement, especially not having released any data to support your claim. That's my biggest complaint with Greer. Is that he says he's done all these things and interviewed and briefed all these presidents, but he's not actually ever provided any evidence to support that case.
Or to blame the public because you were trying to bring it out to them and you failed at it. You didn't bring anything out to the public.
Yeah. One thing I do like,
10 seconds.
I do like that Skywatcher brought to the table is a universal classification system, because I do think that was missing. So we can classify things as orbs or whatever. So I'm glad they brought that in.
Josh, thank you very much for the UFO report. As we say hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on X. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio, Bigfoot Broadcasting Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night, everybody. Good job tonight, Josh. We'll let you get to bed.
All right, man. See you Thursday night.
Have fun at the gym, man.
Yeah. Have fun at the gym.
That's your fault, not mine.
All right. See y'all later.
See you, brother. Josh Rutledge, everybody, the wizard. Love him around here. Give me 2 seconds here. For the rest of you, big thank you tonight to Cat Chaser, Area 54, Pam Harris, Walter, and Shaq Valet for the wonderful super chats tonight. Thank you to Mel WD40 and Luscious Jules for gifting memberships. We greatly appreciate that. And is happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Chris. Teen. Happy birthday to you. There you go, hon. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Mm-hmm. If she wouldn't put that gap in her name, we wouldn't have the pause. I just don't know how long to pause for with that gap in her name. Just saying. Messes me up. Tomorrow night on this show, who is it? Christian McLeod is here with the experience. It's going to be fun. It's going to be awesome. And we will see you all tomorrow night. I'm tired. I really am tired. I think the longest gap I've given is like half an hour. Mm-hmm. Or was it 2.5 hours? Was it that long? Wow. Wow. I don't remember. I'm not braining right now. Let's edit that. Dave not braining right now. Dave not braining. There we go. So we can download this now. All right. I'm going to see you guys tomorrow night. I'm going to quickly edit this up and then go to bed. Thank you all for a wonderful, wonderful night. Don't forget to do us a favor. Tell a friend. And let's build the audience together. All right. Sound good? See you soon, because tomorrow night you get this. How glorious is that? Mr. Happy himself, Christian McLeod. See you tomorrow, everybody.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.